So now we're going to invent a company. So we'll assume that we back in the old days when we had chalk, I used to throw chalk. You know. People in the back making noise. Okay, so now we know what leadership is, right? Leadership is between an individual and group, exerting influence toward shared objectives, often bringing about change. We know what engineering is, making new things. This evening I won't be able to convince you of anything on this page, or this page. This is things you have to learn to believe, or you have to believe. But I do want to point out one more time how important this is. Whoop. How important this is. That if you want to be an entrepreneur, you really do have to be prepared to take risks. So let's start there. How do you learn that it's safe to take risks?
Practice.
Practice. Right. There's no way to do this without practice. And I believe that one of the features of a good educational system is that you let students take risks and practice and be successful. I don't know, how many of you have been in the Army? Yeah, that's all right. There's a few guys who've been in the Army. You know, actually, you may like the Army, you may not like the Army. But if you go and look at how the Army trains young soldiers, they give them a test, right? Some task that just is very difficult, but they're just barely able to do it. And then the next day, they give them some other task, which is a little more hard, more difficult. And they're just barely able to do it. And day after day, the young soldiers work very hard at more and more and more difficult tasks. But almost all the time, they succeed. Because the Army wants confident soldiers. Right? Wants soldiers who believe that they can win in a fight. See, so training people to be entrepreneurs is a little like training people in the Army. You want to take on more and more difficult jobs that always challenge you, but that you're probably going to succeed at if you work really hard. And that success will cause you to be willing to take on the next most difficult job. Right? So I just took on this very difficult startup job. Number 11. I wouldn't have taken this job if I hadn't done 5 of these and 5 of these. If all I had ever been was a professor giving lectures, I would never have taken on the task of starting a new university in a foreign country. But having all that practice, I said, well, I'll try it. Okay, so that's this. Okay, now we get down to real world. Oh, I'm sorry, relating. It's important to relate to people. This is something else you just work on your whole life. It really is important. The last time I was at NASA headquarters, I was walking out of the building with the NASA administrator, Marine Corps General, retired. And he stopped at every person on the way out of the building and talked to them, including the man who was cleaning the floor. Here is a man who can relate to people. Every person He stopped and talked. He didn't have to do that. He's the administrator, the boss of NASA, and an astronaut flown 6 times in space. So this is something we can all work on. How to relate more effectively, how to listen to people, how to make them know that we're concerned about it. Okay, so here's where the real inventing the company starts. So we're going to invent a company that has to do with space. What context do we have to understand? Context, that things that are surround us, the information, the facts, the people. What are the most important 2 or 3 elements of context that we have to think about? I'm sorry?
Needs of consumers.
Okay. The needs of consumers. Okay.
Our staff.
Our staff.
What can we do?
Our
Our abilities.
What type of people are we going to involve
Okay.
in this company?
Our abilities.
Our vision to this new company.
We don't have a division yet. We're studying context, right? So, this incredibly simple chart. I was in business for about 15 years before I really understood this. That basically, the 2 things that you have to understand when you try to start any company is what can technology allow us to do? And what does the market need? Now, you don't have to have this. There are lots of very successful companies that make money every year by putting no new technology at all into things. People who make soap, people who make food. Right? There's no technology in those things. And if you work for a company that makes soap, let's say soap for washing dishes, a new product is a different color bottle. It's true. Or a new smell in the soap. Or a new shape of bottle. Those are new products. But we don't do those things in space, right? But we have to understand what the product, what the market is. We have to understand what the technology is. And in particular, you can imagine that just about every successful new product either has some understanding of the market which is new, or some understanding of a technology which is new. It has to have one or the other of those to be a successful entrepreneur. Okay, so needs is the market, and abilities, part of abilities is technology. One more thing about technology. Don't put more than one new technology in a product. When you're building a new product, you spend a large amount of your effort making the one new technology work. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You put 2 new technologies in a product, it becomes very difficult. If possible, 1 new technology. Okay, so what market are we going to address? How are we going to make sense of the market? Is the space market. What does it consist of?
Ministries of Southern countries.
No. What's the products?
Rockets, satellites,
Rockets,
Satellites.
satellites, software. Who said that? Yeah. Software.
Service signals. We are
Signals.
selling signals. Yeah.
Yeah, signals, right?
Control systems.
TV broadcast.
Radio signal.
Yeah, radio signals. So the first thing you want to understand when you look at a market is how big it is and what fraction of the total market it is. Right? So if we look at the world market for space, how big is the market for rockets? Where's the next line? Is it here?
No.
No, actually, no.
Is it here?
No.
No. Yes.
Maybe
Boundaries,
just
maybe.
below.
4-5%.
25.
Yeah.
25.
4-5%.
Yeah, it's a handful of percent. I don't know exactly, but approximately. So this is rockets. What's the market for satellites?
Satellites. From 10 to 15 maybe.
Yeah, it's sort of like that.
Twice.
It's bigger than rockets,
2 times.
2 times. You know these numbers. You're cheating. What's the number for ground segments? It's about something like that. Okay. And what's all the rest of this?
Services.
Services.
Signals.
Yeah, signal
Telecommunications.
services. TV, broadcast, radio, phone, navigation. Right? It's basically RF or software, you can think about it either way, services. So this part in some countries is called upstream. And this part would be called downstream. So let me give you a little example. The company that I was on the board of, till very recently, Orbital Sciences Corporation, the world's leading producer of small satellites, not little tiny, not microsatellites, but small satellites, and small to medium-sized rockets. So it has a share of the rockets, and it has a share of the satellites. So at one point, this company had 4 divisions: satellites, rockets, GPS, receivers, and photographic services for space. So we sold this, and we sold this, and we kept these. And now, the value of this company is around $1 billion. The value of this company is around $5 billion. The value of this company is around $3 billion. So we sold $8 billion of companies, and we kept the rockets and spacecraft. That wasn't a very smart business decision. We should have sold the rockets and spacecraft and kept the GPS and the photo services. This is, I can't remember the names of what the companies are called now. So, when you think about space, don't only think about this part. Think about that part. And if I were to say, if we looked at this 10 years ago, which part of this is growing more quickly?
Maybe services.
You think this part
No.
or this part?
The first part.
This one.
Downstream.
Yeah. Because 10 years ago, you didn't have a GPS receiver in your phone. You didn't have a GPS receiver in your car. The only people who had GPS receivers were aircraft and missiles. Now everyone has a few GPSs. Right? And soon you'll have a GPS in everything. Whereas the number of rocket launches is actually going down. Right? The number of spacecraft built more or less constant. So I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you those are the facts. Now, there's another whole market here, which is you take, as we did here, you take the technology from this and you take it to a completely different market. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Right? It's fun to be in the space business, but it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time. These are large capital expense businesses. It takes a lot of capital then. So if you're an entrepreneur, there's a set of rules. Right? Here are the rules. Profit within 3 to 4 years. Capital, much less than $100 million. Team, less than 100. Market, big and growing. So when I write a business plan and I'm trying to raise venture capital, I have to be able to say all these things. Big market and growing. Can do it with my team. Don't need much money. We'll get profitable within 3 to 4 years. If you can say those things, you have a chance of raising venture capital money. If you can't say those things, it's very difficult. Right? So, for example, this company took a technology from space, applied it to buildings. First product, 6 months. Total amount of money in order to get to break even, $5 million. 10 people, $3 billion market. $3 billion. Software as a service. So that's the sort of deal that the venture capitalists are used to looking at. So now, let's create a vision. I don't want to make it sound like this is impossible, because it's not. Oh, by the way, this company, 28 years old, was started by a classmate of mine from MIT as a startup 28 years ago. Now it's $1.5 billion. So, but these are realities. Right? So let's try and create a vision. Oh, I should have said this. This is another useful thing. That these are the two sources of wisdom. From the technology, from the market. If you look at the pattern of successful teams that start companies, 3 people. That's the most successful team size. Okay? One of which is a businessman, knows how to raise money, knows how to run a company, knows how to make deals, knows how to read contracts. Right? One of whom is a market leader, because that's the person who understands this. And one of whom is an engineering leader, because that's the person who understands this. So if you think about the team you want to have start, the most successful team size is 3. There's another thing about teams of 3 people. You try to start a company by yourself, who do you discuss the problems with? No one. You try to start a person with two people, right? That's called marriage. Right? Because in marriage, both people have to agree, or there's no other solution. Otherwise, it's called divorce. Right? 3 people is the smallest number of people that can come to a consensus, to a vote. So if you have about 3 people in a company and you sit around for a difficult decision, you're more likely to be able to come to a solution. So there's a lot of good research by a colleague of mine at MIT that says this is about the right size. Okay, so now this is the hard part. Let's create a vision. Let's try and think of a way to make a new space company. So, any ideas? Oh, you have an idea, okay. Okay? I'm gonna, this is gonna be brainstorming. I'm gonna write down all the ideas.
I have idea of making company for broadcasting radio from satellite in Russia.
Ah, okay.
Sputnik Radio.
Broadcast radio,
Sputnik Radio.
okay.
Satellite radio,
Satellite radio,
which is quite successful in the United States.
right. Right? Who's got another one?
Well, how about small launch vehicles for maybe space funerals?
Small launch vehicles for funerals. Very interesting idea. I'll come back and talk about that. Who's got another idea? Пожалуйста.
Объединить мощность GPS-навигации и системы ГЛОНАСС для того, чтобы повысить точность вычислений для инженерных решений на Земле.
And what's the Chinese system name?
Как китайское называется?
Компас.
Compass?
Галилео плюс.
And Galileo. And some other, okay? Not only precision, but reliability.
Okay, another one. You know atomic oxygen, low Earth atmosphere, lithography by using atomic oxygen.
Lithography with atomic oxygen.
Yes.
Well, I guess there's atomic oxygen. So
Yes,
it's-
yes.
Oh,
You're right.
To launch garbage containers to the space.
garbage. Okay. Garbage containers.
Containers, yeah.
Можно еще один? Слежение за астероидами в ближнем и дальнем космосе.
To watch out for the asteroids in the near
Ah.
space and the remote space. They call them asteroids.
Okay.
И еще один обработка изображений для
Process the picture, the image.
и регионов, и
For the
пожаров и прочее.
Легионов чего еще?
И пожаров, и
Watch
наводнений.
out for the floods and fires in different provincial geographies. Probably he means not
Yeah,
weapons,
so
but
it's actually to process the image,
yes.
not to take the image.
Не фотографировать, а обрабатывать.
Maybe the energy from space.
Energy from space.
Энергия из космоса.
Robotics for space garbage collection.
Роботы
As a
для
seminars program.
Space garbage collection.
сбора космического мусора. Роботы.
Okay.
Создание транспортных интеллектуальных систем.
The transport intellectual systems.
What do you mean?
А что вы имеете в виду?
Ну, сейчас, например, очень, так сказать, актуальная тема создания именно систем управления транспортом, ну, опасных,
Managing
грузами,
traffic
там,
management for
пассажирский
public
транспорт и
transport,
так
like
далее.
buses, trolleybuses, trams. City transit system management from the space.
Создание космического орбитальной станции.
Creation of the orbital
Ну, в
station.
смысле, космодром, не в плане
to create
работы, а
the,
в плане старта.
cosmodrome, you know.
Пересадочный.
How do you
Ну
call
да.
it? Place from where to launch the
Для легкого старта и
space-
меньше затрат
spacecraft.
энергии.
Ah,
How to launch the spacecraft from
From
the
the-
space,
from-
from some platform
Yeah.
on the orbit. It's like intermediate.
yeah, right? Yeah.
Satellite system for natural fires monitoring.
Для
Fires.
мониторинга пожаров.
Yeah, that's, I think, a similar idea to this.
Похожая идея.
Okay, oh, one more.
A network of constantly flying planes powered by solar batteries, monitoring the surface of the Earth constantly in online, controlled by space, from space, satellites. This may be used by Google or something like that, like Google Earth.
Maybe something down to earth, like, you know, I think something like that has been already created, but probably GPS tracking of children.
GPS tracking of children, okay. So let's stop there. See, that's not a short, there's many ideas here. And I'm not gonna say that any these ideas are good or not, because if I say something is not good, that guarantees that someone will make money on it next year. But what I want you to think about is the tests. Where are the ideas here? Right. Are they in a segment that's growing, or a segment that's constant or getting smaller? Well, they're all different segments. Right. See, everyone is in a different one. See, this isn't on here. This is down in here. Right? This is a new market. There is no system of long-term flying airplanes to make measurements that are controlled from space, right, that I know of. So this is a new market, right? And new markets are either very good or very bad. If you get a new market which turns out to be successful, then you were the first one there, and you can have lots of opportunity. Broadcast radio. See, that's here. Right? There already is broadcast radio in some countries, but not in Russia. Right? Russia's a vast country. You know, lots of opportunities to have radio services. 145 million potential subscribers.
Longest railway.
Longest railway? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Image processing from space to detect fires or floods. See, that's in here. That's a post-processing service. That's taking information that already exists in photographs and refining the information until you can successfully predict something. Near-Earth asteroids.
It's mainly for satellites.
It's a little bit, well, if you built a new satellite, the cost of building the satellite and launching the satellite would be here. But the real value produced by this is actually down in here, right? But it's really down here, because there really is no service right now. It's a new market. There's no product that exists, to my knowledge, of the systematic detection of near-Earth asteroids or Earth-crossing asteroids. By the way, are you more likely to die by being hit by lightning? This is true for America. We don't have much lightning in Russia. In America, are you more likely to be die by being hit by lightning or an asteroid?
I think the opportunity is the same.
Well, you see, you can calculate this. Right? How many people are killed by lightning every year in the U.S.? No reason why you'd know this. About 100. About 100. Yeah. Mostly hikers on mountains, and guys playing golf. Because they have this big metal rod, and their feet are on the ground. So the lightning comes along, and occasionally farmers. So about 100 people a year. So how many people a year are killed by asteroids? Hmm? No, none. None. No, nobody's killed by an asteroid. Except every 100 million years, everyone on the planet is killed by an asteroid. Right? About every 100 million years. So how many people on the planet?
7 million.
7 billion. So 7 billion divided by 100 million. It's about 70, right? So it's about the same to be hit by lightning or hit by an asteroid. Except when we get hit by an asteroid, everyone's killed. So it's a pretty serious thing. It would be a bad day if we were hit by an asteroid. A big one. If the, where was the asteroid that came down in Siberia? Tunguska. Tunguska. I mean, if that had hit Moscow, it would have destroyed most of the city. But it hit in Siberia. Okay, so you see, the thing to do is to think about these. Think about these, and where are they? Now, let's think about the other part. So we've done the market, and we haven't really done it, but we've thought about it. You have a vision, you test it against the market. Is there a big market? Satellite radio, total addressable market, 145 million people in Russia. Big market. Size of the market for burial in space? Several dozen per year. But it is true that in a study done by NASA in about 1990, looking at the ways to increase this traffic into space in order to reduce the cost of launch, one of the major potential ways to expand launch into space is with burial. Because the risks are low. They're already dead. So now what about the technology? This is the last discussion, and we can go on. So let's just take a few. Small launchers for funerals. Do we have the technology? Do you know about the technology for this more than the next guy? Image, I'm just going to try and do the same thing. Broadcast radio. Do you know more about the technology of this than the next company? Or the next people who are starting this? You always have to think, when you're starting a company, that in Shanghai, and in Bangalore, and Boston, and San Francisco, smart people are starting the same company. There are smart young people all over the world. So you want to make sure that you know more about starting this company than most other people. And the easiest way in our business to be sure of that is that you know something special about technology. Right? That's why we're scientists and engineers, because we're interested in science and technology. How about near-Earth asteroids? Now, if I had just done my doctoral thesis on imaging processing algorithms for the detection of near-Earth asteroids, I might know more than most other people. But I don't, today, know anything more than anyone else. So, you know, if you know something about this, then you might be able to use a technology advantage. Image processing. Image processing, very broad field, very mathematical. If you've recently been working on an algorithm that helps identify small signal changes in large amounts of data, then you might know something that will allow you to build an image processing, a fire detector from space. This is a signal detection problem. Can you find a signal in a large amount of data that may be noisy? It's a very common signal detection problem. The question is, do you have knowledge of some algorithm that would help there? So you see, this is the thought process you go through. Is, do I know something about the technology that I can use that most other people don't know? Do I have a vision of a market that is large enough to be interesting? So now let me just, to finish, go back through these companies again. Technology developed in my laboratory at MIT for vibration control. 8 years of work. Very high level of technology applied to space optical systems. So we had this. And then we looked around, and it took us about 4 years, because we didn't understand this picture quite so clearly. It took us 4 years to find the application on Earth that would really make this a profitable business, making semiconductors. And as soon as we found that, within 1 year we sold the company. Pretty good. Bioscale. Piece of technology, licensed. That is to say, it was produced in a national laboratory, and we bought the license from them. Market, in general, we knew that the market was biological particles, we could say. DNA, proteins, and so forth. But it actually has taken us about 7 years to identify exactly what biomarkers this system is useful to apply. Skip carrot. A to Z. Technology developed in my lab on decision algorithms. This time, we're much more careful about and quick about defining the market. And in 6 months, we identified 2 options. The online internet advertisement placement, and one having to do with financial transactions. On April 1st, 2008, we made the decision to do internet advertising. That summer was the financial meltdown. If we had chosen the other one, company would be gone. Luckily, we made the right choice. And this one, we still don't know. So, if it's one thing you think about from this lecture tonight, thinking about making sense of this diagram. What's the technology I understand better than anyone else in the world? And who can I work with who understands the markets better than anyone in the world? Because you have to have these 2 things connected to make a successful company. And in space, it's hard but doable. Questions?
Большое спасибо, Эдвард. Мы переходим к вопросам. Есть у кого-нибудь вопросы? Тогда его первым задам я. Эдвард, вот было известно, что... Русский быть очень. Было известно, что 20-30 лет назад люди, которые работали в ракетной отрасли в России, в СССР, они ходят, ну, может быть, байки, что это были люди, которые могли работать там 3 суток подряд, у них была железная рука. Можно ли сказать, что предприниматели, это люди в этом смысле мягче или нет? Или они тоже должны быть с твердой рукой?
Well, there's 2 views on what constitutes entrepreneurship. One is that entrepreneurship is always associated with starting a new company. So clearly in those Soviet companies, nobody was starting a new company, very few. But the other view of entrepreneurship is that it's about bringing about a new product. It's the energy and the risk-taking to bring about a new product, but even within an existing company. And I would say in that era, there was a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of taking risks in the early period of the space program. Because people were allowed to fail. You know, it was all a big experiment. And we came very close on both sides to failing many, many more times than we did. So in that regard, that regime actually was very entrepreneurial, because they were taking risks and they were building new things, but they weren't building new companies and they weren't making money. So it all depends a little on your view of what's entrepreneurship.
Да, пожалуйста.
Здесь много русских, поэтому я по-русски. Вы участник кампании по созданию Международной космической станции. В комиссии, да. Скажите, а для чего были потрачены эти почти 200 миллиардов долларов? Если уже станция «Мир» 12 лет пролетала, что нового you have learned, or Americans learned from the international space stations? Because all the lessons have been already learned. Maybe better, it's maybe the question from my side. Maybe it will be better to come back on the moon, which is our natural satellite, and start to work there compared to repeat the same lessons which is Russians already learned.
Well, it's a complex question, but the simple answer is nobody has enough money to go to the moon. That's what we found in this study. No single country has enough money to go to the moon. If you think about what you have to build to bring humans to the moon, you have to build a rocket larger than any rocket we have. You have to build a capsule that can keep people in space for weeks, at least at a time, and re-enter with hyperorbital velocity. You have to be able to build a lander, and you have to be able to build some infrastructure, some means of working on the surface. The United States doesn't have enough money to do that. Russia doesn't have enough money to do that. China doesn't have enough money to do that. So if you take the long view, you would say that the main thing we learned in the International Space Station was how to work together, so that we're now prepared to actually launch or begin a program of going away from the Earth that's truly international, based on the experience of working in low Earth orbit.
You know that NASA doesn't accept non-American citizen in their programs. And
so far I haven't been hired by the Russian space program either.
Do you believe that is?
I'm a doctor of spaceology,
And you believe that is exists even probability to work together between?
I do.
Okay.
I believe it. Я верующий человек.
Me too.
A few more questions. I have to say my voice is just about ended.
Thank you so much for everything. It was just brilliant. And I just wanted to ask you, you told that 3 people in the team is okay.